Any sort of symptomatic thing that recurs in people's life is happening at the source. Understand, if you can just be a little more strategic than most people, most business owners and entrepreneurs cannot think 2 and 3 moves in advance. I always say, I call that playing chess. So when you want to talk to bigger clients, you got to talk to the bigger budget issues and then payroll. Right. We did it. We are live, folks. By the way, fun little fact, I'm making these goofy faces for YouTube thumbnails. That's called batching tasks. Exciting times, by the way. Quick announcement just before we get rock and rolling. We do have a few spots open this year for the mastermind that I've opened up a few more. For those of you guys, I'll tell you, I've been getting a lot of messages from folks who have built what I call the unscalable prison, which is when you start getting 5, 10, 15, 20 clients and you start to realize you're just running like you're like butter spread out over too much bread, and you're doing a little of this and a little of that. You realize you can't scale, and you realize you need to niche down and take a few steps backwards to go. Thanks, Cole. I'm glad the face does it for you. So for those of you guys who are interested, you can check out the video at beyondagencyprofits.com/wolfpack, or you can always message me and I'll send you the video. Other than that, let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings to you our weekly Q&A. Ba-dum-bum-bum. As you can tell, I'm a shitty drummer. Excited to see you guys. We got some awesome questions here. I'm excited to see the progress here that you guys are making, and I think we're going to be talking about some things that I think will today be beneficial to quite a few of you folks in there. First one we got is Richard says, "Hey Frankie, watching your latest YouTube video about selling $1,000 to $10,000 per month monthly packages. The first question is, what kind of results can you actually achieve? Do you think it's absolutely necessary? I have a case study, or do you think it's okay to tell them a procedure which top SEOs are getting a result with? Like, for instance, optimizing internal linking spread to the value of backlinks from the homepage to other important pages." Do I think it's absolutely necessary? And the answer is no. But having said that, it'll make your life a fuck ton easier. I've been talking about this book a lot lately. You guys actually don't need to read the book because I'm going to give you the key takeaway in it. It says any sort of recurring problem in life is happening upstream. So they use the example in the book where they start the book with the story of two little girls who are drowning two guys are sitting at a river, and a little girl comes in and says, help me, I'm drowning." So the guys jump in and they save the little girl. And about 2 minutes later, another little girl comes up the river and says, help me, I'm drowning. And they jump in and they save her. And then a third little girl 2 minutes later goes, help me, I'm drowning. And one guy jumps in to save her, and the other guy goes up the riverbed, and the guy who jumps in the water goes, where the hell are you going? And he says something to the effect, I'm going up the water to see who the hell's throwing all these little girls in the water, right? Like, I'm going to go see this problem at the source. Now, any sort of symptomatic thing that recurs in people's life is happening at the source. Now, the reason I tell you this is because clients do not understand, as a general rule, that their deeper problem is happening up the river. And almost always, like 99 times out of 100, they only understand that there's little girls crashing in the water. So when we tend to talk about our hammer or our service, in this case, website optimization, but the same could be true if you were doing SEO, or the same could be true if you were doing Google Ads or Facebook or web design or whatever, is clients don't wake up in the middle of the night and think, man, I really need a new website. Like, they might think about that once a month, if that. And it's a very, very small kind of minor thing in their reality. So I see this like another hammer people sell is Google reviews. But if you think about it, what happens when you have bad reviews up the river? And I'll give you an example of this. One of the things that somebody did in our mastermind is they found that folks who didn't have Google reviews were getting a lot of tire kickers. So people would call and say, can you tell me how much it is for blank? And then they tell them the price, and they would say, okay. And they'd hang up the phone. Right? And it's really annoying if you're a business and you deal with that all day long. People interrupting your day, calling you to ask you how much it is and then not buy it. You just feel like you're wasting your time every time you pick up the phone, and it's annoying. Well, like most problems, they don't understand that up the river, if they had a bunch of awesome Google reviews that sold their service even before people got there, they would get way less of those tire kicker calls and a lot more of like, hey, I saw you guys on the Google and I want to buy your shit. Right? So if you sell the Google reviews as the Google reviews in this example, you're missing the deeper thing that it is how they experience this as a symptom. So I always like to boil it down to two simple things. Either you're helping them solve a symptom in their reality. In other words, in this case, little girls in the water going, help me, I'm drowning, like tire kickers in that example. Or you're helping them get a result. And the more you can translate to how that shows up in their reality, not in terms of how you deliver it in your reality, the easier you'll find clients understand it, get it, buy it, pay for it, give you less resistance. And so I use two things. This is a really powerful framework if you guys really understand this. The first thing I look at is whenever I'm looking at a potential like symptom or result, the first question I ask myself is, how much are they likely thinking about this? Okay, so in the example, if I use the example of Google reviews, like how often do you think somebody really thinks about Google reviews in their business? And the answer is probably like once a month, once a week, like not often, right? And then the second question I ask myself is, how emotional are they likely to be about it? Now you compare that to upstream and how that shows up in their reality is the little girls drowning in the water. How often are they thinking about the little girls? Well, every fucking day is a little girl, you know, in this case, like a tire kicker calling them. So the more you sell a solution to symptoms they have and results that you can bring them in their reality. Having said that, is it absolutely necessary? No. I have a lot of friends who do very well selling SEO as SEO, but it's a lot of work to build yourself up and establish yourself as an expert. And I find if you just say like, hey, like we got a simple way to get rid of the tire kickers who are calling you all day long and ask you how much it costs, easier you're going to make that whole thing. So this is my way of saying for all of you, there is a deeper level thing you are selling, and it is not your service, it is not your deliverable. Rather, it is how that translates to a result in their reality. And one of the easiest ways is like after you're finished the SEO and after you're finished the optimization or after you're finished the new website, what happens in their reality? Talk about those things and you'll have a much, much easier time selling it. And one of the easiest ways to find out, by the way, what this is I've talked about this at great detail, what I call the nickel and the $100 bill, which is just to ask your clients, which is, which kind of clients do you wish you had more of? Or which kind of clients do you wish you had less of? Because almost always they're trying to move away from like some combination of broke clients who have no money and move towards more higher end procedures, people who respect their time and their value, where they can make more money doing a lot less and being a lot less busy, be less stressed about payroll. So if you can fill in those two frameworks, figure out what they're doing now that they don't want to be doing and what they want to move towards, and then you are simply providing the bridge to that, and nobody's really interested in the bridge. They're interested in getting to the other side. So if you can nail that, I'm telling you, you'll make your life a lot easier. Having said that, as per your original question, is it absolutely necessary? No. You can absolutely be successful without it, but I'm telling you, you'll make your life so much easier in the form of clients will get it, they'll pay for it, they'll understand it, you'll get less pushback, they'll say that's refreshing, I've never heard anybody say that. So I hope that's helpful to you and the rest of you guys. Richard says, trying to get a handle on how to phrase my first date offer. Any suggestions? A website conversion rate optimization that promises 10% or more increase in visitors to contact them. Now again, right? 10% increase in visitors. We're talking about the hammer, which is the website. This is the tool with which we build. But if you think about that upstream in the analogy I gave, how does that show up in their reality? Well, to me, it's like if I'm getting 10 phone calls, it's like, hey, without spending a single dollar more, I can give you 11 phone calls, right? If you're getting 100 phone calls, there's 10 phone calls you're missing out on every month, right? It's better to sell, like, I bet you we can find 10 phone calls in the website you already got than it is to try and sell conversion rate optimization. most of the time they don't even understand what we do anyway. So I want you to think about, like, how does it actually show up in the reality? Let's say you've done the conversion rate optimization. Their website has increased 10%. Where does that show up? Chances are there's going to be more people calling them and emailing them, and they're not going to have to spend money to do that, and they're probably going to get residual benefits month after month after month after month, right? So you want to sell those like, I can find you 10 extra phone calls month after month after month with about 10 minutes of tweaking your website, right? Like, that's a much, much better, in my opinion, value proposition than, like, I'm going to sell you the hammer. And this is a universal thing I see, so I'm not, like, talking just to you, Richard. Is like, people do not buy SEO, they do not buy websites, they do not buy Google ads, they buy what those results produce for them in their real life experience. So I hope that's helpful. Yusuf, I notice a common issue with potential client websites that I know have a turnover of over 500,000 per year. The reason I'm interested in this demographic is because they are more likely to have a budget to spend on consulting services to solve this issue they have. This issue is putting them at risk of losing customers or sales due to the increased likeliness of them getting punished by the search engine. What is the best way of approaching these potential clients to see if they're actually interested? I heard the mom test is an essential read for this. So in your particular case, I think, by the way, just this is a good sign, is that you're talking to businesses that are spending at least $500,000 a year. By the way, thank you to Lana for the old Frankie Finn cup with our all our cool logos and stuff on it. So firstly, that's the first thing I look for, because a lot of people miss that step, Yusuf, which is they don't even talk to the right type of people in the first place. And so there's no argument you can make. Like, I've seen lawyers who have grown their practice 40 years with referrals. If you try and sell them paid ads and they've never ran paid ads for 4 decades, you're going to be paddling up Schitt's Creek and have a hard time. So that's the first thing, is I look at, are they spending money on that? Now, it sounds like in your case, this is a little bit of a tricky thing, because you're selling a solution to a future problem. So it's like they can be punished by the search engines because they're vulnerable now. And so what you have to do is make a valid argument that this issue is affecting them now. So I'll give you a kind of comparable thing so you can wrap your head around this. So this is a Dan Kennedy story, by the way, but he was talking about, they were selling fire alarms, okay? And fire alarms are tricky to sell. They have these advanced smoke detectors. I guess in 50% of fires, the smoke detector doesn't go off in time for people to get out of the house. And so even though they have, like, adequate protection, it still doesn't go off. And smoke detectors go off way sooner. So they were selling smoke detectors. Now, the problem with that is it's a future problem that you don't have today. And so it's hard to sell solutions to future problems. So what they did is they gathered a bunch of materials and showed fires that had happened in the area, and showed people, this can happen to you too. And the more you can make a compelling argument that this is a real danger now. So for me, that what that would look like is showing them businesses just like theirs that didn't fix this issue, and how mercilessly Google kicked their ass and punished their business and all the things they lost. Because the more you can bring that into a real life problem now and present that as like you're at risk right now today. This is the same way, right? Like, if you're trying to sell the solution to your website could be hacked, or your infrastructure could be hacked, you have to make a valid argument that this can happen to you today, right? Like, this can happen to you any moment. And the best way to do that is to show them examples of people just like them who've been punished, because you'll make the opening the door so much easier, because you bring that problem into today instead of like a future thing that would be nice to address someday. Our man Seth, what's up, my dude? He says, hey, Frankie, I'm trying to create a pay-per-close offer based on your insanely valuable book. Appreciate that, my brother. My questions are, how would I structure the deal to be able to verify the deal the company closes? I assume I would need access to their CRM and QuickBooks, but I figured I'd ask. Second question is, do you have an example of agreements for contracts for this? Seth, I'll answer that in reverse. Firstly, I'm probably the worst person to ask about contracts. Believe it or not, most of my stuff is not done on contracts. And the reason we've been able to do away with contracts is there's a deeper level investment principle that I use for a lot of my decision making. And it's called asymmetric risk. And the first time I heard this, it was such an aha, but I didn't necessarily know how to apply it in the real world. And the idea of asymmetric risk is, When you're wrong on something, you want to be wrong a little bit, and when you're right, you want to be right a lot of bit. If you do this in investing, you'll win more often than not. So one of my mentors uses a simple example. Like, let's say you're flipping a coin, and every time it lands heads, you lose $10, and every time it lands tails, you make $1,000. Well, even if it's flipped on heads 10 times in a row, unlikely, but let's say it's been heads 10 times in a row, and you're down $100, you need to keep flipping that thing, because when you win, you're going to win $1,000. So the way I do this, as mentioned in the book, is I do first dates. So when I do revenue share deals, I don't commit to like, I'm going to be your SEO person, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run your ads. I'm like, let's run a little small test, and I'm looking for a few things in that test. Okay. Firstly, can I actually like produce results for you? Sometimes you get into it and you find you can't. Secondly, I'm looking for like how easy and like collaborative it is to work together. And then the third is like, are you going to be transparent and fucking pay me? Right? So if those three things are not met in a first date, there simply is no second date. And so I found that I don't really need detailed contracts, because if you screw me on date one, then you miss out on what could be a potentially great marriage. So that's how we get away from the contract. Now, having said that, it depends a lot on your first question on the type of business. I found if you're dealing with like brick and mortar businesses, and when I say like brick and mortar, like you're dealing with a dentist, it can be a little bit tricky because they have to give you access to their books, their system. They got to be transparent about what they close. What I've found that helps is deducing it down to, like, for example, if an injury lawyer gets 3 phone calls, they'll usually close 3 like qualified phone calls. They'll usually get one of those closed. And so what I say is, like, often, like, okay, like you value a closed deal at $1,000. Let's just do $333 a phone call, and we won't have to sort through the math and dig into your books and all those things. Having said that, I do have a couple of friends, Seth, that are doing revenue share and roofing. I'm going to connect you with one of them after. One of them is a good friend of mine named Dan, and he does that, and he'll probably have some specifics for how to cover your ass in roofing. But for the most part, I think what he told me, this is just going off of memory, so like this is just ballpark, not exact figures, but I think he said their profit margins are like 15-20% on a deal, and they're usually happy to pay like 3-4% to somebody. And so he was doing big commercial roofs where he'd get them a $400,000 deal, and you know they might collect 40-50 grand profit, and they'd be happy to pay him like 10, 12, 15,000 as a marketing fee on that. And so he'll probably have some better ideas on how to structure that with those specific companies. So I'll connect you guys, and you guys can take it from there, and you know, ask him anything you need to ask him. He's a cool dude, open guy, and he'll I'm sure he'll be happy to answer anything that'll be useful to you. But overall, with revenue share, like that's the big idea, is we're creating asymmetric risk. So we're testing clients small to find out how they really handle things, so that when we're right big. So like I have a couple of revenue share clients now, and we're doing some pretty big money, and it's pretty easy. But having said that, I've also had like first dates that don't work out. That's part of the process. But when I'm wrong on those first dates, and to like give you a metaphor so you can kind of like understand what you're doing, is, and this is deeper, like invest, when you start thinking about your business like an investor and less like a service provider, is let's say there's a piece of land, and you're relatively certain that piece of land has gold on it, and meaning when you buy it, you're going to get fucking obscenely rich. But you are not 100% sure, you're like 90% sure. So one of the worst things you could do is buy that land. A much better thing to do would be to arrange for some sort of test. So like I might like reach out to the owner and say, hey, I'm thinking of buying your land for some of the minerals that are on there. Would it be cool if I did a little soil test? I'm going to bring in my crew, and I would try and keep that test as small and as short as possible to answer the question, is there really gold here like I think there is? And if it turns out, if you do the test and you find a bunch of gold, then you buy it and you proceed and you've managed your risk. And if you're wrong, you haven't committed to a contract yet. You haven't committed to anything big. So this is how we do all our stuff, which is first date, then marriage. And I think it'll save you a lot of headaches in general, and not just with revenue share, but also with retainer clients. For those of you guys who are doing retainers, I think it'll still make your life easier. William says, my wife is opening a bakery, and I'm trying to spread awareness while also encouraging people to stop by and buy something. I'm currently running awareness ads with reach as the objective, targeting a 5-mile radius around the location and an audience of people with interest in bakery. Split testing against an audience with no interest selected. Is reach the best objective, or should I be using ad read, call, lift, or impressions? I'm also running a traffic campaign, sending people to an opening day event. Thanks in advance for any advice. Firstly, William, congrats on helping your lady open a bakery and get that thing off the ground. So this is one of the things, okay? This is probably going to be a quality Frankie Finn rant, just to preface this. I spent 7 years running Facebook ads, doing all the bullshit that everybody told me to. Make sure you always do this. Make sure your pixel says this. Only increase the winners by this much. Duplicate and blah, blah, blah. And all it created for me was a bunch of rules that I had to follow that I didn't know why I was doing it. And the end result of all of that was a bunch of fucking mediocre ads that I had to pay a lot of attention to. So I think most of the conventional wisdom on Facebook is a waste of time. It obsesses about the tech. Now remember, the whole point of Facebook ads or Google ads or any platform is to connect with the person, the right person on the other side of the ad. So if you really, really understand that, I found there's only 4 things that matters in ads. And this is from years of listening to. There's a guy who ran ads called Brad's Ads, and he really hooked me with the, what his philosophy was really simple, which is I run one great fucking ad and I put all my money on that. I don't try and split test. Like, split testing and all those things are valuable, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that as an advertiser, but I think split testing is when you start spending $500 a day or $1,000 a day and more, and now you're starting to really dial in those finer details. But for most of you guys, like, you're better off just coming up with one great hook and putting all the chips on that. So Facebook ads to me are 4 things. Who do you target? What do you offer them? What do you say? And what image do you use? And so for me, what I would suggest in your situation is the hardest thing you're going to do is not like, should I use reach or traffic or all these technical questions about Facebook, is you got to get somebody to get off their fucking ass and come to your wife's bakery who's never been there before. It has to be a pretty irresistible offer. And what I would do is a small free something. Hey, we've been cooking brownies all this morning and we got the smell of chocolate in the air, and I know most of you guys have never heard of us. This is our grand opening. Come and bring in your coupon and get a free brownie. By the way, like 75% of people who come in will feel guilty and buy something else. They'll feel like they have to buy something. They can't just take the free brownie and leave. 1 out of 4 people will take the free brownie and leave, but they can still, like, if you understand the long-term value of customers, they still may come in later. Price your stuff, by the way, so that you still make a profit on the other things they do. This is called a loss leader. Supermarkets do this all the fucking time. We got a can of soup, 49 cents. Why do they sell you the can of soup for 49 cents? Knowing they don't make money on a 49-cent can of soup. Because the obstacle is to get you to come in the door in the fucking first place. And so once you come in the door for the 49-cent soup, there's 10,000 other things they can sell you once you're inside. So the hurdle is getting somebody to try it. So that, having said that, I would keep it really simple. I wouldn't try traffic and blah, blah, blah. One ad, whatever objective you pick, I don't think it'll make that big of a difference. Target it geographically. Don't worry about folks who are interested in bakery. And just announce that your shit's open and make them an irresistible offer. We got a free brownie. We got a cookie. Come try our loaf of bread. We're known in 6 counties for mama's fucking apple pie. Whatever that is, give people a reason to come in and watch as that bakery takes off. And understand, if you can just be a little more strategic than most people, most business owners and entrepreneurs cannot think 2 and 3 moves in advance. I always say, I call that playing chess. Have something else to sell them once they're in the door. This is what McDonald's does all the time. Would you like to add an apple pie for 99 cents? Somebody comes in for the free cookie or the free brownie or whatever it is you guys are known for. Would you like to add a blank for $1.99 today? We've got a coffee and a donut special for $2.49. Would you like to do it? So if you can do that, you can give away the money on step 1 and get it back on step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and acquire a customer who comes to your bakery regularly. So I hope that helps you, because that's a good question, and I think you're doing something really good there by helping your wife. Laura says, I'm starting a new agency from scratch. I'm wondering if there's only one good way to niche down. Does it have to be only plumbers or IT consulting firms, for example, or is there another valid way? Laura, there are a lot of ways to niche down. I think most people misunderstand what the purpose of a niche is. A lot of times people come to me and they think finding a niche is looking for this perfect hidden source of money that is a blue ocean and untapped. And I'm not saying those don't exist, but most times you're going to enter into a niche that's already competitive. The purpose of a niche, understand this, or a niche if you're going to really use the French word, since it is a French word. The purpose of a niche is so that when you do something once, you get paid for it again and again. Let me say that again. You want to do something once and get paid for it again and again. So that means if you're going to run Google ads for a plumber and you do all that work to generate them phone calls and business, and you help them dial in their ads and their landing page, it wouldn't make sense to then go and help an e-commerce store run Facebook ads or to design a website. And these are the things that I did in the beginning. Not understanding. The best thing you could do if you run Google ads for a plumber is find another plumber who can use that exact same ad and landing page with a few small tweaks. You'll know you have this right when you start client number 2, 90% finished before you even start. That is like one of the biggest secrets of this whole game, is that client 2, 3, 4, 5, you already start finished, right? And it's a powerful hook, right? Like a lot of times we think selling custom is so valuable. Like compare these two hooks. Okay, hook number 1, hire me as your web designer, and we're going to design you a custom website, and we're going to go back and forth, and I'll design it how you want, and I'll code it, and I'll get everything up to speed in about 3, 4, 5, 6 months after us going back and forth. I'll get it exactly how you want it. Okay, there's hook number 1. Okay, that's called custom, by the way. Hook number 2 is, hey, I built this amazing website, Mr. Plumber, for another plumber, and we found we're getting $80 phone calls for this high-end service that you're doing all day long, and I would love to just take that and put that system in place for you so that you can start getting these same kind of phone calls. And if you say yes to me right now, I will have it set up within the hour. You'll see within hours we'll start getting these kind of phone calls you want. When would you like to start? Right? Like, already done for you. That's a magic phrase. It's already done for you. 4 words. Already done for you. So that's what we want to do with the niche, is set up a phrase where we can say, like, I've got everything already done for you. Say yes to me and we'll just plug and play in your system. Now, having said that, I don't think a niche is enough because most niches are red ocean, super competitive. What I look for is a niche within a niche. And I call this the $100 bill. Is if you talk to 100 plumbers and say, which kind of people do you want more of and which ones do you want less of? Almost always there's a spectrum. And it's the same thing if you talk to a lawyer or a dentist or a butcher or a candle maker. So somebody mentioned, for example, they had somebody or their wife was starting a bakery, right? Like one loaf of bread is not going to make them as much money as if they sell loaves of bread to, say, a local restaurant, right? And they sell them loaves of bread say they make them buns, they make them their hamburger buns, and they buy 100 a day every day for the next 10 years, right? So one of those contracts is going to be more valuable than selling one bun. So the more you can focus on helping people in your industry get their highest, most desirable, valuable thing, the more your prices are going to go up and the less you're going to have to do energy-wise to do it. Because, okay, if you're helping a coach sell their $40,000 mastermind, it's more work than helping them sell them their $27 ebook, but it's not that much more work, right? It's believe it or not, it's not that much harder to sell a $40,000 thing than a $27 thing. Is it harder? Yes, but not that much harder. And so what you'll create is energy leverage. What I mean by that is you'll be able to get big results for clients, but there's very, very little for you to actually do. So the point in picking a niche is to do that. Now, having said that, your industry is one way. There's lots of little ways. I've seen people do it like I do it for Christians only. I've seen cannabis entrepreneurs. I've seen, for females. Like there's lots of ways you can do your niche. Like the best way I can say that is find out the people you like working with and specialize in them and then help them do their most expensive thing. And you'll have like a winning agency model in general. So I hope that's helpful. Douglas says, making your services, this was more a comment than a question, but I wanted to kind of rant on this a little bit. He says, making your service appeal to a more premium customer, i.e. going after the 10K plus retainer segment that might have ad spend in the $100 to $200 per month areas. A lot of folks ask me this of like, how can I raise my prices? And it's a little bit counterintuitive because raising your prices has less to do with what you do and the services you provide and more to do with the tier of client you do it for. So like, for example, if you're helping a law firm that has 25 locations and they spend $25 million per year on TV advertisements alone, your Google AdWords fee is going to be a lot bigger than if you do the exact same service for a single lawyer who has one location and a secretary or a receptionist or somebody like that and makes about $250,000. Right? So the biggest step in raising your prices is who you do it for. Now, there's a couple of things that go into that. The first is you have to identify specific problems and symptoms and challenges that people face at the top end of the market and talk about those things. Okay? So that is one of the first things. So like, for example, in my industry, in the personal injury space, if I say, hey, are you a lawyer struggling to get clients? Then the lawyer who responds to that advertisement is a lawyer who is struggling to get any clients at all, usually, right? If I run an ad that says, are you finding your TV cases are costing you more than $1,000 per signed case, which is a number that lawyers don't like to pay more than them because it makes it hard for them to make any money after they've paid their staff and all those things. So here's a magic word that starts with P that when you want to start appealing to bigger clients, is start talking about issues related to payroll. Okay, so they don't stress about money in the same way. They like bigger clients do have money stresses, but it's usually related to payroll, staff costs. So like, for example, in a lot of industries, I've helped people to write messaging that's basically like, have you found let your guys, like you got crews of guys that are supposed to be working, but they're standing around doing nothing. Or a dentist, you find you're paying your hygienist and the chair is empty, right? So like, these are the challenges. They're paying employees to do something and those employees are not being fully maximized. As a general rule, they hate those kind of things. So when you want to talk to bigger clients, you got to talk to the bigger budget issues and then payroll. And then the other thing is, bigger clients, it is a different process to seduce them than a lower paying client. I see this all the time. Is like, everybody seems to have the preferred method of cold outreach. I don't know why. I think it's part of the reason is you can do cold outreach for free and it's an easy way to get started. But cold outreach will not land you the big fish for many, many reasons. The first being is like, they very rarely even check their own messages. It's not like you can just easily message them directly. They have their information and contact info hidden and for a reason. And they prefer to hire the best experts in the world. So I've seen this many, many times where there are closed door masterminds or events or conferences and lawyers will ask the question, who is the best person for blank? And there will be an answer to that, usually 2 words, a first name and a last name, say, for example, Frankie Finn, and they will hire that person. So what you need to do is go to those places and inject yourself into those conversations. One of the best models I've seen done this, I have a friend named Seth, and Seth has built an agency that it does about $40 million per year. And they are one of the Inc. 500 fastest, or Inc. 5000 fastest growing agencies, like 5 or 6 years in a row or something like that. And one of the things they do, it's a very simple business model. He finds out where the top masterminds are. Now, bear in mind, he has a $10,000 per month SEO service. He goes to those masterminds, to the owner, and says, I would like to pay you $10,000 so that I can present my SEO content to your group. It'll be all value, no pitch. If they're interested in hiring me after, they can. But if they don't, that's cool too. I'd like to just add something to your group. He calls it his pay-to-play formula. And the value is not in like that he gets to do authoritative content or anything like that. The value is who he's in front of, is he gets to go in the rooms with these folks who are spending $100,000 a month, $200,000 a month. So you want to be the top experts. So you need to go to where those meetings are, and you need to talk about issues related to the things they're experiencing. If you do those 2 things, that's how you get the $10,000, $20,000 per month retainer clients. Almost everybody I know who's at a $10,000 per month retainer or higher, and they do go higher, by the way, they are doing it through some form of like which room they are in. It is very targeted, it is very strategic, and that kind of thing. So I hope that's helpful to you, my man. That is basically the formula in a nutshell. At least as I know it today. I'm sure there's improvements and stuff that could be made to it and tweaks and probably alternative strategies that work as well. But all the folks that I know are doing it are like Going in the right rooms of people and talking about the issues that are relevant to those people. Sounds overly simple, but if I talk to 100 agency owners, 90 of them are trying to cold message strangers on LinkedIn. You will not get $200,000 per month clients that way. Or, sorry, $20,000 per month clients that way. Dwight says, have a different question. How long, number of pages is your quote proposal for your services? What is your percentage close rate? Dwight, I haven't done proposals for a long time, but I've helped a lot of folks write them. There is a section in my book that talks about setting expectations. And the whole point of setting expectations is to get a clear picture of what's actually going to get done. So there are 5 things that I talked about in expectations. Number 1, what results can you actually achieve for a client? Like, how are you going to measure the output? Secondly is, how long is that going to take? It sounds really simple, but not enough people talk about how long their shit takes to work. How much is that going to cost? Right? And that's your fees and the management fee and all those kind of things, and the ad costs and whatever, like the total picture of what it's going to take to produce that result. The communication, in other words, like how are you guys going to update each other? When is that going to take place? And then the 5th is what I need from you, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client. What kind of so if you nail those 5 things in expectation, these are the exact same things that you actually want to put into a proposal. These are the results. This is how long. This is what it's going to cost. Here's how we're going to update each other. This is what I need from you to make this work. So if you really understand that, proposals can be half a page long. And they don't really need to be more. Longer proposals are not better. Now, having said that, your second question is a loaded question because it says, what is your closing percentage? I think my closing percentage when we used to do proposals was like 25%. But the question implies that the closing comes down to the proposal, and that is what implies the percentage. And in my experience, it actually largely comes down to 2 things. One is your offer, like how unique is it, how valuable is it, how easy is it to get it from somewhere else. The more they can only get it from you, the higher your closing percentage is going to be. That's just the more irresistible that offer, you can take your proposal rate from 25% to like 95%, depending on how irresistible. Second thing is, what follow-up mechanism do you have in place? So what most folks do, by the way, is, and I used to do this, so I'm not like giving shit to anybody, but like once you send a proposal, there's usually like a silence period you get from a client where you're wondering like, are you going to hire me or not hire me? And what I found the best way to handle that is rather than say like, so what do you think? Which is what most of us do. Like, hey, what do you think? Have you checked out my proposal? And they say, not yet. Check back with me next week. Is to send them converging assets. And so one of the easiest things you can do, testimonials. Another thing you can do is your plan, meaning like explain a little bit more about how your process works and how you're going to produce results for people. And any sort of FAQ questions. And you can do this in an automated way. Josh Nelson calls this his hot lead follow-up. But if you strap that onto your proposal, meaning when somebody says, I'm interested, you start sending them testimonials, details, and things that help them make a decision, you'll convert more of them. So that's why I didn't want to answer that question directly, because it's not just about your proposal. It's about what you're actually offering in that proposal, as well as what kind of follow-up system you have in place. And by the way, one of the easiest tweaks you can make both for yourself and for your clients is when somebody shows their interest, add a follow-up series. You'll convert more people. And one of the easy ways, I mentioned this, I had a post about it, but this is easy money for you guys who didn't see the post. Like literally some of the fucking easiest money you'll ever make in your life is you tell a client, hey, I noticed when somebody emails you, there's no follow-up. I would like to add on, that's a magic phrase, by the way. It's an easy to say yes to. I would like to add on a follow-up series to you. And they say, well, what did you have in mind? And you say, well, you got a bunch of really cool testimonials. When somebody expresses interest, I'd like to send them some of your testimonials. Do you think I could do that for you? And what I typically have done is I use Aweber, and I force them as part of the sign up. I say, I'm going to have you sign up for the software under my link because you'll get a better price than if you don't. And then what will happen is I have somebody on Fiverr just go and copy and paste like 5-10 testimonials into a series. I don't write a fucking word of it. Okay? And what happens is once that's set up, they will convert more of their prospects, and The fun part for you is you'll get those software commissions for like 5 years, 10 years if they're still in business. I have AWeber commissions from stuff I set up like 6-7 years ago, which is kind of fucking amazing, to be honest, because it's the closest thing to passive income that I've seen. Is like, I haven't done anything for a client in 6-7 years, and I'm still getting royalty checks from them. So if you guys want to set that up, it's some of the easiest money you'll make. Having said that, for your specific agency, like when somebody expresses interest, make sure there's an intelligent follow-up series, and make sure you put an irresistible offer into that proposal, and you'll get a lot more yeses, and you don't have to worry about what percentage is normal. It will vary from industry to industry and service to service, so I don't think you need to measure yourself against anyone else. Eric says, suggestions for effective follow-up strategies after meeting with potential web design clients. Well, Eric almost answered that entirely in the last one. Having said that, the way you structure your website can be a make or break difference. I mentioned, like in the last thing, is your offer. Nobody buys a website. I experienced this. So for a lot of years, I sold SEO, and my offer, if you broke it down to its core in SEO, was give me money, often for like a long time, like 12 months, and hopefully I'll get you to number 1 in Google. But no guarantees, because Google's crazy and I don't control them, and so I can't guarantee 100% it'll work, though I'm pretty good at it in general. And when you think about it, that's a hard to say yes to offer, because it's very risky. They don't know me. I'm asking them, give me a lot of money, wait a long time, and there's no guarantee it's going to work. That's the epitome of a hard to sell offer in a nutshell. And I remember, I'll never forget, I had a surgeon come to me one day and say, hey, I really want to sell mommy makeover patients. Do you think you can make me a website just for mommy makeover? And of course, right? Like, what's the difference between making a website for one thing and another? It's really not that much different. So I said, of course. Then he said, do you think people are searching on the Google for mommy makeover procedures? And I went into the Google keyword tool, known today as the keyword planner. And of course, lo and behold, there were some searches. And he said, do you think you could rank for it? And I did a couple of searches just to kind of scope out the competition. Turned out it was actually even easier. And he said, and I said to him, yeah, we could build you a website and we could rank it and we could talk about mommy makeovers. And he said, do you think we would sell some mommy makeover procedures from that? And I said, I don't see why not. And he said yes to that. So this is my way of saying, like, that example is what is known as an add-on, and also selling what I call the $100 bill. Like, their mommy makeover is their most expensive procedure for this particular surgeon anyway. So I made an add-on website. In other words, like, if you say to somebody, your existing website sucks and I want to convince you to replace it with mine, they have to you have to get them to kind of fire their existing website, or to fire the person responsible. If you build an add-on, they don't have that issue, right? Like, it adds on, it's complementary. So the more you can make your stuff a complementary piece and sell their most expensive thing, what you'll find is selling websites will get a whole lot easier. Hey, I noticed, like, if you reach out to an online coach, say, hey, like, I noticed you got this really cool website, and on there I saw a little bit of details about your $40,000 mastermind. I'd love to build you just a website just for your $40,000 mastermind as a little add-on. What do you think? You'll have more success selling add-on $100 bills. And as far as follow-ups, what I just mentioned, testimonials, case studies, example, other websites you built, right? Remember, like we sometimes think that coming to a decision about, like, buying a $10,000 website is a smaller, easier decision than it actually is. Like, it's a very binary yes or no. Very rarely is it like that. They need to sit with it. They need to sleep on it sometimes. They need to come to terms with that. That doesn't mean it needs to take like months, but often this will take days or even a couple of weeks. And so one of the best things you can do is send testimonials, send examples of your work, send your plan, send some of the benefits of working with you. Send them like, hey, I had an idea, like, I think we could do something. The more you can automate that, the better you'll be at it. So anyways, those are some thoughts on how you follow up with a client. But the worst thing to do is go, so Mr. Client, what do you think of my proposal? Would you like to buy my website? Because almost always the answer to that will be, I haven't got there yet, message me later. And then you'll just end up in this endless chasing where they don't really tell you yes or no. So what I like to do is follow up with them with powerful stuff, powerful conversion assets, and then put a deadline on it. If you haven't decided by this date, let's just call it a no. So hope that's helpful to you, my man Eric. For those of you guys who missed the intro, just mentioned we got a couple of spots open in our mastermind. We've been getting a lot of messages from folks lately, and I'll tell you who what situation is really, really good for crushing it, and that is the folks who have built their agency to like anywhere between like 5 and 20 clients, and then what you found is it's not niche specific. You're doing too much and too many different things. You're stressed the fuck out. You're busy all the time, and you've realized you can't scale past what you're doing. The solution actually, by the way, is to collapse down into a single service and make an irresistible offer and then deliver that over and over. Like I said, the key to knowing you've got this right is if you start 90% finished on client 2 before you even get them. Right? So if you've already got the website, if you already got the landing page, if you already have everything ready to go, before they say yes, that's how you know you have a scalable agency. Because what the real constraint, most people don't understand this. A business will only grow as fast as its biggest constraint. And when you reach the stage that when you're at like between 5 and 20 clients and you're stressed out and you're wearing way too many hats, your biggest constraint is energy. You can't get any more time or energy in the day to do what you're doing. And so you have to be able to simplify. And what happens is when you niche down and deliver something awesome over and over and over, what will happen is you'll start each client 90% finished, and then the energy to deliver it gets easier and easier. And so I've always said this, but you can have 50 clients that are easier to manage or 100 clients that are easier to manage with one system than you can with 5 clients where you do completely custom work. My man Carlos, good to see you, brother. So if you're in that situation, one of the things I've helped people do that I'm really good at is identifying in your existing roster where your niche is already. That what you've already done it. That's an important distinction to understand. Is you don't have to like decide on dentists or this. You've already done your niche. You just have to identify one client that you've done something awesome for and go, hey, there's 50 or 100 other people like that I could do this for. Why don't I focus on delivering that again and again? I'm really good at it. The client liked it. It's a good fit. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me. I'd like to have a conversation with you, help you figure that out. If we can help you figure that out, your agency can basically grow as big as you want, and it'll be fucking easier. That's the harder thing. It was hard for me to understand. A 50 client agency that runs well can be a 5 or 10 hour a week thing. It's like a factory. It's boring. It's like just pumping out shit. A chaotic custom agency at 5 or 10 clients, 80 hours a week, and it'll stress you the fuck out. So if you're interested in that, reach out to it, brother. Talk soon. That's all I got for you guys today. Appreciate you guys. Much love, and may the force be with you.